and Citro.
I am here as well.
We have a physical quorum.
Thank you very much. No, we don't need any swearing in. I don't see anybody else that's going to give evidence. Ladies and gentlemen, I just need to make sure of one thing. We're going to go agenda item number 69 first, that it was being continued until this time. If there is anyone that is going to be giving any evidence to that, to agenda item number 69, file number AB2-22-19, would you please rise and raise your right hand to be sworn in?
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we are going to now take agenda item number 69, file number AB2-22-19. And staff is here, Ms. Johnson-Velez.
Senior Assistant City Attorney. Item number 69, I believe, and Ms. Mandel can confirm all of this, but I believe the applicant is going to be removing their request for off-premises consumption from this request in light of the fact that, you know, state law doesn't require off-premises consumption in order to do the alcohol to go, and in light of, in response to council's comments. And so rather than this being a second reading of this ordinance and adoption this afternoon, we are going to go back to first reading of the ordinance. We're going to remove off-premises consumption from the title of the ordinance, and we'll have first reading of the revised ordinance at this time.
All right, then let's go to Ms. Barnes for now. Ms. Barnes? You're muted.
Annie Barnes, Development Coordination. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sorry. I just heard what Ms. Susan Johnson-Velez stated. Is it my understanding that this is going to be the first reading, or it's going to go back to first reading?
This is going to
This is going to be the first reading.
Got it. Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Shelby.
Does that mean we have to have a full presentation on the first reading? Because you're really just making an adjustment that's less than what it was the first time around. Does that mean you could just send it back to first reading, or you have to have another first reading, public hearing? Pardon?
This can be that, well, we already had the presentation. They're just reducing their request.
Right. So then what sort of presentation? Is it going to be a presentation, or are we just going back to first reading?
We're just going back to first reading. The presentation is the only thing that's being removed. It's a lesser request, so there's no.
And Madam Clerk, what do you need for the action summary?
Just a substitute ordinance.
We can have we'll have a substitute ordinance at second reading.
You'll have the substitute at second reading. Would that be sufficient for your purposes? Would you be able?
I just remember to read the title out and make sure that it's exactly what it read.
Okay, are you on mic? I'm just curious.
So as long as the council member that makes the motion reads the title correctly, I'll make sure that the title reflects that on the action summary.
Okay.
And then we'll accept the substitute ordinance on second reading.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Ms. Barnes, can you briefly just read through this for us, please?
Yes, Annie Barnes, Development Coordination. So item number 69 is AB2-2219, being presented now for first reading for special use 2 for alcoholic beverage sales for large venue consumption on premises for beer, wine, and liquor located at 450 Channelside Drive. So site plans were dropped off at City Hall earlier this week. There will be need to be a modification to any mention of off-premises consumption on the current site plan between this first reading and second reading.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Ms. Mandel.
For the record, Julie Mandel with the law firm of Gray Robinson, 401 East Jackson Street, Tampa, Florida. As you've heard Ms. Johnson-Velez and Ms. Barnes indicate, we are requesting that this item be taken back to first reading so that we can remove the off-premises package sales. As I said earlier and was discussed at the first reading, it is not the desire to do any off-site package sales. The only intent was to do to-go orders of alcohol as part of the restaurant license that they have with the state. I would say for the record that all the testimony and evidence that was put into the record at the previous first reading hearing be placed into this record as well, and we would just seek your approval with this change, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Any comments or questions? Will revisions be made between first and second reading?
I apologize, and I should have indicated that, yes, we will make all necessary revisions of the site plan as indicated between first and second reading. Thank you.
I thank you very much. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to speak to agenda item number 69? Seeing none, do we have anyone online? Mr. Cook, are you there? Can you raise your right hand to be sworn in, please?
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
You're
Please
muted, Mr. Cook.
Unmute yourself.
I do. I have no comments to add.
He's part of our team, so I think he just registered. Sorry.
Motion to close from Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Councilman Maniscalco, would you please read this?
Thank you. I have an ordinance being presented for first reading. An ordinance approving a special use permit SU2 for alcoholic beverage sales, large venue, consumption on premises only, and making lawful the sales of beverages, regardless of alcoholic content, beer, wine, and liquor, at or from that certain lot, plot, or tract of land located at 450 Channelside Drive, as more particularly described in Section 3, providing that all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict are repealed, repealing ordinance number 2014-91, providing an effective date.
With revisions.
With the revisions between first and second reading.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Miranda. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Goods?
Yes.
Viera?
Yes.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Hurtak? Carlson?
No.
And Citro.
Yes.
Motion carried with Carlson voting no and Hurtak being absent. Second reading and adoption will be held on December 15, 2022 at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you. And now we have, oh, I'm sorry, can someone make a,
Move to open the 130 item,
Second.
number 73.
thank you. Agenda item number 72, can we remove that from
So
our
moved.
docket?
Second.
I'm sorry? Is reschedule?
We could go January 5th or January 19th.
Motion to continue this at January 19th.
Second. Is legal here for this? I have a question. How many times has, thank you, Ms. Johnson-Velez, how many times has this been continued?
Sir, I am not aware of any continuance requests for this item previously. It looks like it was just scheduled on October 6th for today.
It was rescheduled. So this would be the second request to reschedule.
This will be the second request for rescheduling.
So this could be the final request then pursuant to the section.
And then, hopefully the petitioner will be notified.
Yes, the petitioner will be notified.
Thank you. I have a motion from Councilman Maniscalco to continue this case, or excuse me, to move it to January 19th, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Agenda item number 73, file number E 2022-8, Chapter 27. Ms. Dock, how are you?
I am good. Thank you so much, Council. LaShawn, Doc Development Coordination. And Council, item 73 is a privately initiated text amendment. There are two privately initiated text amendments that I will introduce to you today. One, I do appreciate your time in allowing us to come before you to request these. So as you know, currently in the code, privately initiated text amendments are not allowed. This is the last batch of privately initiated amendments, and the first one that I will introduce to you is the one for the East Tampa overlay. This is a part of the January cycle, the January 2022 amendment cycle. The applicant is the East Tampa CRA and the East Tampa CAC. The request is to revise and update the current East Tampa overlay code language. So it would include amending 27-156 along with 27-140, which is the actual East Tampa Overlay District standards. This is a map of the East Tampa Overlay District of that area. You can see the northern boundary jogs, but it is approximately in the vicinity north of East Hillsborough. The Interstate 275 is the western boundary, along with it being the southern boundary, and then it goes over to 56th Street and jogs with the city line on the east. So the request is to, one, provide a cleanup for the items that are listed in section 27-156, which is our use table. We're moving the accessory dwelling unit that's listed into the correct use group category in that table. And that is a change that is from recommended by staff. The other change would be to allow accessory dwelling units as a special use for properties located within the East Tampa overlay. Those are the two changes to that section of the code. The remainder of the changes are to 27-240, which is the East Tampa overlay. One would amend the requirement for the front yard setback, which is currently required as a block average, and that will be amended to a range of 15 to 25 feet. This also would require a change to garages and the setback for garages. Carports, the setbacks for the carports, the side yard setback. This also would include a change regarding chain link fences, and these are new chain link fences. Any existing would be allowed to remain, but the installation of new chain link would be prohibited. And then also the last change proposed is, for the residential section, is the two-story accessory structures. They can be approved if it is the precedent of the block. Now, here are the non-residential standards. So this is for commercial or mixed-use development. We're adding a cleanup regarding the site plan submission and what is required to submit for your review for the overlay district standards. It'll be like any other location. You're required to give a landscape plan and elevations. It's just clarifying that in the code. The front yard build-to line would be a range instead of an average, because currently the front yard block average applies to both residential and non-residential development. The principal building facade, the orientation of that would be amended. Minimum requirement for sidewalks, our screening requirements, accessory structures, parking standards and requirements would be established through parking trade-offs, which is always encouraged by staff whenever there's an amendment coming forward. And then sign standards, lastly, is what will be presented to you. So this request, as I mentioned, the applicant is the East Tampa CRA along with the CAC. So we have Mr. Cedric McCray here, who is the East Tampa CRA manager. He's available in case there are any questions. And we have Kim Hedlund here. I don't want to get it wrong. She's the chair of the East Tampa Land Use Committee. So Kim is going to present to you the language.
Question.
And I'm available for questions. Yes.
Councilman Maniscalco.
Real quick, so in the first, or one of the first slides, it was the ADU that you had mentioned, correct? So right now in the overlay, ADUs are not permitted, correct? And this would change that?
This would change that, and it would allow allow it as a special use.
Okay.
For the, for properties located within the East Tampa overlay. It was a desire of the community, is what I understand. And we understand also that that discussion is happening with council.
Yes.
simultaneously with staff, with city planning, along with development coordination. But this was a wish to include it in this language, and whichever is adopted first would apply.
And this
Is what would go.
would be in regards to the affordable housing situation?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, all right, good, thank you.
Councilman Good.
I'm cautious. You know, we haven't approved ADUs yet in the city. So I don't know why we're trying to approve it now. We haven't approved it for the city yet. I'm cautious that I just don't want a certain part of town to be thrown with ADUs and it continues to have slum and blight, because to me, it brings on more transients, people, in and out, and I want to be cautious of when we talk about the special use. Tell me when we're saying special use, because what I don't want is people say I can just put up anything and everywhere, because you're not going to be able to do it in other parts of the city. You can't tell me that's going to happen, even though we have an affordable housing crisis. But my concern is just, it's to me to be a dumping ground on the east side of town and messing with property values and values of people's homes.
Absolutely, Councilman Goods. And I can certainly understand your concern. Also, I'd like to mention, and just to keep in mind, that currently in certain special districts, like in Seminole Heights, you are allowed to have that use. But it is limited to that, and then it's limited to 2 other areas in the city, which is specified within our use table. So this would, yes, include the East Tampa overlay area to allow it, but a special use, what that is you would have to apply for application through the Development Coordination Office. And it is an administrative review, and there are certain standards that must be met. And you would apply that way. They all don't come before council unless for whatever reason it's denied, and it comes before you on appeal. But other than that,
I'm just cautious of it. We're saying special, but I'm just cautious because we have not approved it for the whole city yet. And I understand that certain areas, when I saw the presentation, will not be included. So I'm kind of torn right now to talk about just throwing a bunch of ADUs on the east side of town. But I'll listen to the presentation, but I'm very hesitant right now.
understand. Absolutely.
Finished? Are you good?
Yes, sir.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you. Just for the public that's hearing on television or whatever, explain to the public what an ADU is, just so that they understand what's going on.
So we have currently in the code an accessory dwelling unit is an ADU. And then we have the other, which has been the topic of discussion when we discuss the ADUs, are the extended family residences.
And the ADUs supposed to be for family members, am I correct?
The extended family residence is for a family member. You cannot charge rent, and it has certain standards attached with it also. But the ADUs is not strictly for the family member, currently in the code.
I'm not here to, I heard what Mr. Good said, and I understand his apprehension. If I call it was anything from the north, way north, or way south is not included in here, right? Just for, I think there was only 2 areas that were included in the ADUs, or extended family.
So extended family residences are allowed citywide with this special use approval. The ADUs are the ones that are limited. It's
And they're only
within
limited to
certain
this area
area.
here
And
that
then
we're
this
showing now.
would, and so what would be before you in the language today, currently in this particular item, would cover the East Tampa overlay. And this is the boundary for the East Tampa overlay.
See, I'm not against what we're trying to achieve, but what I'm very apprehensive about is that, in essence, it's a lot that's owned residential that now has a duplex, which is no longer residential. And I hate to say this, but I will. In some instances, maybe in this instance it'll never happen, but some instances are rented out. They don't pay any ad valorem tax to a higher degree. They don't pay any sales tax, and they don't pay any tax to the government because they pocket the cash money. And I've heard complaints, not in this case, don't get me wrong, but in some areas where you charge rent and you can only pay by cash, they will not take a check. That way there's no trail back. And I've experienced that through people who have called my office in the last couple of years. And you're welcome to have the records that I have if you want to look at them.
And Councilman Miranda, I certainly understand the concern, and we understand and we explained it to the applicant that this ADU discussion is ongoing. Council has not decided either way. We still have this language that is moving before you as a publicly initiated amendment, along with this one running as a privately initiated, so, and the applicant understood whichever would take effect first is what would be in place. Or they could hold back theirs,
There's got to
whichever
be a
would
way
be council's
where
desire.
we tighten it, and I'm not talking about you doing an excellent job, excellent presentation. But I like to see tightening something up, so if they have an ADU, then you have to have this form before you can grant it. Something's gonna happen. Because I can understand, what you're saying, but I'm a little apprehensive on what I've seen in certain areas of the town, especially where I live at, where one day it's a house with a front door, the next day it's a house with two side doors and a front door, then it's a sidewalk leading around with a lock on the outside, like a door handle, not a lock, a door handle with a key, and then there's a little plastic fence. Then on the other side, there's a little plastic fence with another door going in, and what you have is a beehive. One hive with a lot of bees, one house divided into four. That's what I'm saying, and this is going on, and it's been a problem as far as the schools are collecting no tax on it because the tax is just a city tax, ad valorem tax. The county pays their portion, but the school board's getting cheated out. When you look at your taxes, and I'm not a tax expert, you look at the county, you look at the city's ad valorem tax is about the same. At the school board, it's twice the amount what the county gets. If you get the counties and the cities, sums of the digits equal what the school board should be getting. So the school board's getting cheated out, and I'm not here about you, please let me understand that. They're getting cheated out of that money, and then the federal government, they pay no tax at all on money they collect from rent. And I'm not saying this is the case, but I can understand Mr. Gould's apprehension to some point because it's rampant throughout parts of the city, and it's got to stop. So I don't want to give someone an opportunity that could do something, so we have to have something in place that they understand what the law is and what the ramifications are if they break the law.
Absolutely, and keeping in mind also, council, that as you have this discussion regarding the ADUs and as a vote is made as to the requirements for that ADU, it can certainly take place over, whether it's citywide or by area, whichever is decided upon, but if it is citywide, or if you'd like to have it even take effect over the overlays, that portion of this request would be removed. We still have time. I'm going to review with you also the processing schedule. This is the workshop, so this is the very beginning of this code language. I believe the ADU discussion and vote will occur before this comes back before you for first reading. But we do have that opportunity to remove it if needed, or to amend it based upon the vote on the overall ADU discussion. But your concerns are
Comments or
heard.
questions?
Thank you. No? Okay, I'll turn it over to Kim, and I'm available at any point for any questions, council. Thank you.
I believe there should be a presentation.
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
I believe there should be a oh, yep, there it is. Okay. My name is Kim Headland. I have served over the last 2 years as the land use chair for the East Tampa Partnership. I've had the privilege of serving in the past decade on and off the CAC, the East Tampa CAC. So a little bit of history regarding how we came here. Back in 2016, under Miss Evangeline Best, who was the chair at the time, the Land Use Committee began to look at the overlay and some of the things that were happening in East Tampa, and there was a directive to go ahead and have the committee begin work on looking at revisions to this overlay. In 2018, the CAC at the time approved funding to apply for the privately initiated text amendment, and a draft was submitted. In 2019, city staff made recommendations based on that draft and requested an executive summary of changes. This draft was then tabled between 2019 and 2021 as the CAC tackled other bigger issues that the community needed to deal with at that time. At the end of last year, I was asked as land use chair to take a look at the overlay again. We brought it back since October of 2021. We have presented this and taken feedback from the community at 2 partnership meetings and a separate CAC meeting. So a little bit about the changes. I will give a broad overview comparable to what you just heard. So again, the allowance of ADUs within the East Tampa overlay. The lots of record is clarified in the overlay. Setback and orientation, it is a range. A range is given to give a little bit more flexibility to folks that are providing infill housing. Permitted carports within 3 foot of the property line, and garage locations, the 2-foot setback as Ms. Dock outlined. Alley access for parking and transparency requirements were also included in this. Next, oops, I guess I have a clicker. Maybe. There we go. So the community was very interested in ensuring that the front of the home, the focus remained on the front of the home, which is where the 2-foot setback came into play. So that language has been added to the documents. Again, carports being allowed within 3 foot of the property line so that infill housing can be as compatible with the community as possible. The allowance for use of the alley for parking if the alley is not vacated. This is not a requirement. This is only encouraged and is optional. We looked at the transparency requirements, which the way that the overlay revisions are written, the committee and the community was interested in ensuring that there weren't a lot of blank walls and septet issues that were kind of proliferated throughout East Tampa. So this would require windows or doors on all sides of residential structures with a minimum transparency of 15%. So basically that one wall would have a small window on it. ADUs. This was a really significant conversation amongst the community that was brought up over the last year in response to a few things. Housing affordability, yes, but also in response to generational living and being able to age in place. Our neighbors directly to the north in Seminole Heights are able to have ADUs, and there was a lot of interest from the community in those initial partnership meetings to also have that option for accessory dwelling units. The way this is written, they may be located on single-family parcels or in conforming accessory structures. And that's the important part, is the conforming, that they're legal, that they've gone through the special use process and they've gone through permitting. Those were the changes proposed on the residential side of the overlay. On the non-residential side, we looked at transparency requirements, setback orientations and ranges, sidewalks, open storage screening, parking requirements, sign standards, adaptive reuse of existing buildings and neighborhood main streets. And those 2 last items were really looked at in collaboration with the Economic Development Committee to ensure that new development would be as compatible with what we have, but also that existing small business owners, existing stakeholders are able to adapt and modify their properties without being penalized or without having to find really excessive solutions to items such as parking. Jumping back to the fencing, no new chain link for new non-residential development. Open storage must be screened with an opaque material matching the nearest structure. This is for open storage. It's also for dumpster enclosures, enclosures of that nature. Sidewalks, the community felt very strongly that 6-foot sidewalks should be required on collector or arterial roads to ensure walkability within the greater East Tampa area. Principal facades. So main entries shall face the right-of-way or the entry courtyard and create that street edge. You can see one option on the right there that addresses the streetscape. Main streets. So the one kind of big change here is that the main streets are designated to coordinate with the community strategic action plan, and incentivized redevelopment opportunities were created in terms of parking reductions available for adaptive reuse or just reuse of existing buildings, or businesses that change that may have different parking needs. There's an incentivization there for that redevelopment. Again, the parking reductions that I just went over, again, encouraging that adaptive reuse, encouraging that neighborhood commercial and improvements to existing buildings, and sort of embracing multimodal transit in that way. And those are the corridors that were identified as part of the updated strategic action plan, and they've been outlined again as part of that non-residential section of the overlay, or the requested changes to the overlay. And then finally, the setback range. Similar to the residential section, this creates a range instead of the block averaging, and it gives a little bit more flexibility to developers while still creating that cohesive block that addresses the street edge, and hopefully creates new infill development that's as compatible as possible with the East Tampa community. I guess I'm open for any questions.
Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you for this presentation, and you showed, I think it was at least 2 photographs of the new Columbus Drive corridor and the complete street projects that they did with the crosswalks, with the much wider sidewalks. I've driven through there forever, before and now, and it's transformative. If you could apply that to, let's say, for example, when I go to Ybor, I got to get to Martin Luther King, I take 15th North. If we could do that, with some of these proposed changes to make 15th look more like Columbus Drive. Or in regards to another thing was the chain link fences, making them where they, not existing chain links, but anything new that it matches, that it's compatible. I think that would offer some kind of beautification, some kind of uniformity. It's a lot of little things like this, and you mentioned adaptive reuse. There's a lot of historic buildings. There's a lot of brick structures. This is wonderful. And when I say wonderful is, we have, the zoning, a lot of the zoning laws came into play, I think, in the 1980s. And before that, the codes weren't, or we didn't have the codes for smarter development. In looking at these proposed changes within the overlay, it will allow us to improve the quality of life, improve the quality of the neighborhood, the look, the feel, the safety, the wider sidewalks, the complete streets projects. I mean, there's just so many things that would be transformative in the sense that you're improving the quality for the people that are there, and increase property values. It looks better, it's safer. I mean, there's just so many things, and you've touched on a lot of stuff, so thank you very much.
Councilman Miranda.
Well, Mr. Gould first, I believe. I agree with Mr. Maniscalco up to a point, when you showed Columbus Drive, which it does look very nice, and I use it quite often, and then you showed the next set was on 15th Street and 26th Avenue. That's one that has there's in the one corner, there used to be a feed store, then there was a drugstore called Ideal Sundry. Now it's a store that we had to close. That one I don't recognize. I don't know if that's in the city of Tampa, but not in the area we're talking about, I don't believe. Is this picture in the city of Tampa?
Are you, well, let's see if I can get back. Well, I'm not sure.
No, that one, go
This
back.
one.
That's 15th Street.
This is on 15th
26th Avenue.
Street.
Yeah.
That is not within East Tampa. That is within another Florida city, but this is an example.
Yeah, I understand, but when I saw that, I said, either I was blind when I drove through, or my memory's gone with me. But I looked at that, I said, very nice, but I wish it was here, but it's not. But the other ones I know very well. I was raised in those neighborhoods. So it's, I like what you're saying. However, you allow the chain link fence in residential, and there's a reason for that. And in my part, the reason is you can see on the other side of the fence, see who's there. If you put every residence and you put a 5-foot closed plastic fence, you can't see who's on the other side. You don't know who's waiting on you.
I think it's important to note with the fencing revisions that are being proposed that any front yard fencing would have to match what the city of Tampa requires, which if it is a closed fence, say a closed picket fence, that in the front it has to remain at 3 foot, that it can only go higher in the back. The chain link was something that was a request that went all the way back to 2016 when we started looking at this, and it was something folks felt strongly about just to improve the overall aesthetic.
Well, I understand, but when you see, and I got the 2 feet, the 3 feet, that's wonderful, it looks very nice. And you're right, the setback on a plastic fence, or whatever you want to call it, panel of fences. However, when you look at that, there's 2 things you got to look at. First of all, does it open from the outside? If it does, if it has a little latch, you can just, a little key, you can watch out, because you have a rental property behind it. If it's solid and it's open only from the inside, you don't have a rental property back there because you can't get in. So these are the things that I always look at when I'm driving around the neighborhood, and in my mind, I can tell you where they're all at. I'm not saying that's going to happen here, but when you start with something good, something wonderful, something fresh, something that's needed, you always got to look out for someone who doesn't want to do that, but is using you, and when I mean you, I mean all of us, as a scapegoat to doing what they want to do. And that's what happens. When you see that, and you see a little sidewalk that goes from the front to the left or to the right into a setback, on the other side, what you have is rental properties on both sides. I can show you all that. But I'm not here, I understand what you're saying. I know you're grasping for air, and I'm not talking about your program. I'm telling you what it could be after you do this. You got to be vigilant. You got to stay on it daily basis, because it does change on a daily basis.
Well, I think that's where we also need help from the city in terms of code enforcement.
Yeah, but once you do that, code enforcement can't walk into a property. It's not allowable. You have a lot of loopholes that you got to follow that you can't really do what you want to do. That's all I'm going to say. You don't believe me, ask the code enforcement officer. So there's where we're at.
Councilman Goods.
Well, Kim, I think the presentation is great. I mean, you've worked a long time, and you've got some team members over there now who are now really getting the ball moving in East Tampa, which I love. Which I said, when you have knowledge, knowledge is power. And you've got some knowledgeable people over there now who want the community to look different, bring a different flavor, and we need that to get rid of the slum of life and to uplift our communities. My mother wants a vinyl fence, Mr. Brandon. She said, I'm tired of that chain link fence, but right now I can't afford to get it to her, you know? But eventually,
Christmas is coming.
yeah, I know, man, you know? So I understand the vinyl fencing. I understand, a reference to chain link, which I don't have an issue with either or of it. I mean, but I think for me, it's to making sure, the ADU is the stickler for me right now. I'm just going to be candid with you. That's the stickler for me. I know we have a housing crisis. Everyone knows housing is my main focus right now. But I want to make sure that we're just not putting stuff up to other houses and bringing down values. I want to make sure that like Mr. Miranda says that, you know, we start the renting cycle into where we have people in and out, and you don't know who's coming or going sometimes. And I mean, that's a challenge for me, knowing that I want to try to improve our community, but in the same token, it's a double-edged sword. I need housing as well. And right now, for me to say, let's do this right now in Tampa, and we haven't even put an ordinance in place for the city, I would challenge that, because we still have some challenges with the ADUs as the ordinance itself. So for me to just say do an ADU right now, it'd be a hard stretch when I haven't even voted on an ADU for the city yet. So that's the problem I have with the ADU right now. I don't know what the time frame for this planned text amendment has to be in or not versus what we're going to do with the ordinance. Maybe Ms. Doc can answer that question for us.
Yes, absolutely, Councilman Goods. LaShawn, Doc Development Coordination. And this is what I was going to review with you, Council, the timeline that we have before us now. So currently, today, this item is before you as a workshop for discussion, and it is in the earlier phases of the processing. The next step, we're going to brief the Planning Commission, and that will be in December. And then we would do the Planning Commission public hearing, which is in January. And then we could circle back to City Council no sooner than February for first reading.
When is the city's ordinance coming back? When is the ADU for the city coming back? Isn't that coming back soon too?
I believe it's within the next month, or early January at the latest, but I believe it is in December.
What I like to see, I know Mr. McCray was here. What I like to see, I don't know how many meetings were held about the ADUs in East Tampa, so I don't know how many. But what I want to make sure that the community knows about ADUs. I know some of Seminole Heights is in the east a little bit, but when I look at that middle core right there, I don't know if they really know about what that means or what it is. And I want to make sure that they know, especially some of the property owners, understand what that means. And again, I'm all about housing. I just want to make sure how we're going to craft it to kind of control it a little bit. I just want to be able to control it a little bit to where I don't have a lot of transit going in and out. I need housing, but I just want to make sure that I can be able to control it a little bit.
I can tell you, Councilman Goods, we did have two partnership meetings where we covered ADUs in depth, including marker boards and kind of discussion of pros and cons. We also had this presentation with ADUs included at 2 CAC meetings as we prepared and looked for to ensure that we had the support going forward to come here today and to start this process again. The ADU is just one really small piece of this overlay revision. If it's something that's a sticking point, I think it's something that we could, within the time frame we have, we could take that one piece and go back to the community and discuss further and hold a few more public information sessions with neighborhoods to ensure that everybody's on the same page as we're standing here asking for this. But again, it's a small piece, and I think we have the ability to take that out and maybe have a little bit more discussion about it and hear any other points that.
I mean, I like the presentation, Kim. I mean, everything else. I mean, the sidewalks. Looking. Especially those corridors. I've always said we got to look at 15th, 22nd, 34th, 29th. I mean, we've got to make those lookable, livable. I mean, I'm in total agreement with that. Just my stickler point, and Ms. Dodd said we would have enough time before it had to be presented. Am I correct on that?
Correct, Councilman Goods. LaShawn, Doc Development Coordination. Since this is the last cycle for the privately initiated text amendments, one of two things could occur. So council could direct the applicant or just ask if that language would be removed from the overall request. So that could be removed, that reference to the ADU. The rest of the language move forward based upon how council decides on the ADU discussion at a later point. We can certainly circle back as part of a publicly initiated amendment to revise it to incorporate changes to the East Tampa overlay. If the ADU,
I don't wanna hurt the folks who working hard. I just wanna make sure if I can make sure that that middle core is on board, it can go forward. I don't have an issue with that. As long as the constituents want, that's what they want, I'm not gonna fight what the constituents want. But I want them to understand what some consequences can be with these ADUs, and especially in the East Tampa area. That's what I want to be clear. Even when you go up to the north of the town, the Sulphur Springs, and these places, we're trying to clean up some of life, even though we have a housing crisis. Because I'm telling you, once you let that floodgate in, everybody who's a property owner is going to want to build something back there or add on something to have additionals, and you're going to have that in and out traffic, and some, especially our lower communities, that equity is not there yet. And that is my only fear point. Equity is not in, like you say, South Tampa, Palmacia, New Tampa, some of these places. It's not there in some of these smaller places. And that's my concern. It will make things worse than make them better.
Understood, absolutely. And I believe what we can do is, we have this timeline. I can tell you that in addition to taking public comment today, at today's workshop, because I believe there are members here to speak, we would also allow public comment at the Planning Commission public hearing, and then there's an opportunity, of course, by the time we get back to City Council for first reading. But Kim can certainly go back to the group and get feedback and decide what she'd like to do with that language or what the consensus is for the community. And by the time we come back before you for first reading, if you're comfortable, if council is comfortable, we can certainly let you know at that time what it is. Because at that time, it can be reviewed.
Right, I don't have an issue with that. I think that's the perfect thing to do to get
I think we have enough time.
I think we have enough time.
Yes.
Councilman Maniscalco, and then I'll go to Councilman Miranda.
Real quick, in regards to valid concerns that Councilman Goods has, of unintended consequences in allowing these ADUs, I get it. You know, we have a housing crisis. This would benefit a lot of people, but you open the floodgates and you have to be careful. And one thing that I will mention is an article that I saw a couple of days ago. I didn't read it. I saw the headline. I saved it, but it was, I want to say Wall Street Journal, maybe New York Times, one of those. But it was something along the lines of one of the co-founders of Airbnb is working with municipalities or behind the scenes to change codes, to change something. And I said, this may be in regards to, you know, the push for ADUs. I don't know. And then you have, you know, these units being used as Airbnbs and whatnot, and not for true residential. I don't know if the article says all that. I briefly looked at it. I saved it. But let's make sure that we look at everything. You know, exactly, owner-occupied. These ADUs that they're charging rent, you know, those that live in the larger house, the main house, are charging rent, unless it's a family member, but where it's an affordable situation and creating a better affordable housing option for people, especially with how things are in the city of Tampa. So I'm just saying, we have to look at everything, look at all the evidence, but I think ADUs, you know, in the end are beneficial when properly used, when the guidelines are followed, and how we regulate them, and how people are allowed to rent them out. So again, you know, you see what apartments cost, what homes for rent costs, and people are in need of this housing. So thank you.
Thank you, and I'm sorry, but I agree with my two council members. I'm going to support this today because you have over 90 days before this in first reading on February 2nd of 23. However, at that time, it's easy to say extended family residence. They're all going to say they're extended family residents. Let's face it. Because, I mean, you know, it is what it is. Human nature. We don't say lies, we just hinge a little bit on the truth. And I'm not calling anybody a liar, don't get me wrong. So what I'm saying is this, we must have verifiable evidence that they are family members. And with all these ancestry things that you have now, I don't think it's that difficult to find out they really are. Let's face it, these things were invented and they were never used. Maybe that's why everybody's living the way they are. They're everybody's family, which is true. We only come from one set 100,000 years ago. But however, that's not the case we have in these cases. Again, I'm going to support it today, but the family, extended family members must be verifiable. Not, it used to be we take a picture when you came into the office down the road, And every year, they go knock on the door and they verify that picture with that face. I wonder if we're still doing that. No. I'm not asking, I'm just wondering. I don't know. I don't want to create no problems, but I'm giving you an idea of where we're coming from. It's got to be verifiable. Everything, there's a thing I say in horse racing, trust, but verify. And I learned that in the other job, because people tell you the truth or how they interpret it to be truthful, and when they tell you, it's got a lot of holes in it. So what I'm saying is this has got to be done in a mannerism where we want to have people have a place to live, there's no doubt. None of us here are against that. However, we want to verify all the facts before we let something like this start, because once you let the horse out of the corral, that horse is not going to come back. And we have other things that we have to do to make sure that the city is run the right way. And it's got to be where everything is verifiable. And it's got to be in a way, so much, okay, you stay, fine. But these things, if not, it's going to be a catastrophe that we're going to have, because now it's going to expand to another part. In the neighborhood that I live in, I guess everybody's related. That's all I'm going to say. I think you got the drift. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry if I in any way dampened I'm not trying to disrupt what you're trying to do. I'm trying to verify to the best of our ability. If it doesn't happen, we have to get another deal to find out what the cases were and the workload and everybody else. And then we don't have the right to go on the property, private property. But thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Councilman Vieira.
Thank you, sir, and I'll just be very short. I mean, I support the idea of looking at more ADUs where we can do it. But if, to the extent that we do it, like I said before, we have to make sure to have continued oversight and revisit it for any excesses or needs for modifications. I think that's something that's obvious. And then another thing I'm always interested in is what the community thinks. So I do look forward to hearing from folks out there today. Thank you.
All right. If anyone is going to make, I'm sorry, Ms. Hedlund, are you finished with your presentation?
Yes, I appreciate the feedback, points all very well taken, and I think we have an opportunity to take this and any additional information we hear today back to the community and back to the East Tampa Partnership.
Thank you, Ms. Hedlund. If anybody would like to make comment to this that is in chambers, can you please form a line on my left, your right? And not everybody needs to go over there. One person can stand at the podium and make the first statement.
Man, we got some heavy hitters here today. You got the senator here, you got the first African-American councilman's daughter here today.
Senator.
You got Ms. Harvey here, wow. Mary Harvey's daughter.
Yes, sir, could you please state your name?
I'm Senator Jim Hargret, 2002 East Emma Street, Tampa, Florida. I'm also the owner of a commercial center at 2409 East Lake Avenue. It potentially has 5 commercial spaces and 2 residential spaces. And it's an area that's been serving the community commercially since the 1950s. And I would like to request that consideration be given to adding East Lake Avenue between, say, 22nd Street to 34th Street as a part of the area where you can have reduction in parking and potentially reduction in retention, because that would encourage development in an area that's really where commercial services are really non-existent. We serve the housing development over on East Lake Avenue, and we are currently engaged. We'll currently be engaged in redevelopment of that area, and I think it would have a substantial impact given the lack of commercial services in the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, times have changed. I remember when I used to go to Mr. Hargreaves' father's store and steal grapes, okay? They were a viable part of that community. Okay, bottom line, I'm here with 3 of my neighbors. two of them actually, and her niece. We are all property owners. Some of our houses,
Ma'am, can I have your name, please?
I'm Sonia Perrietta Harvey McCoy,
Thank you.
okay? I thought he said it, that's why I didn't say anything, I apologize. In one case, I believe that family has been in that house about 80 years? Yeah, a long time. I have been in my house since I was 8 years old, okay? I'm 70 now, okay? Is my family house. The lady behind me has been, that house has been in her family, I know, a good 60, 70, 80 years. When you talk about ADUs, they're not beneficial in our area, and I will tell you why. In my area, my neighbors take very do well with their yards. The issues we have in our neighborhood now are people that do not own the homes. When you allow people who are looking for money, we got heritage. We love where we stay, okay? We love it to the point I call ghouls all the time, okay? You allow these people who don't live in that neighborhood, that have no history, or someone who buys the house simply for the purpose of renting it, you're going to hurt those of us that are trying to maintain heritage. Now, admittedly, I'll be honest with you. I want to sell my house. And my son and my niece and nephew said I was crazy, okay? You got to keep it in the family. You got to keep it in the family. If you allow this to happen, it will change the neighborhood. Now, I want to say we do have a problem with the homeless in that area, okay? And we fought that. Thank you, Goose. You helped us out quite a bit. So you can't tell me in honesty that these residences will not go up, people will buy them for investment property, and not really care about us. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Allison Hewitt again, third generation, East Tampa, Florida. Want to say that we in the committee, one of the things that Fran Tate did when she became chair is she made sure that the committee is coordinated on issues. And so as Economic Development Chair, we attended and had co-meetings to be able to address this. So I want to thank you and for listening to this. So ADU was one of the few things that had the fractions on the CAC actually come together in support. I support it because I am, again, third generation. My mother is actually here in the audience, and she has been in the house 69, Mom? And one of the things that came up in the meetings were that a lot of our residents are aging, and they're trying to get their kids back, but they don't really want to leave the house, but they don't want the big house. And so a lot of people who came to the committee is like, okay, we can move our parents into a smaller house on the property and be able to take care of them and be able to keep the family. So the generational conversation came up a lot in our conversations. And then there were those who wanted to be able to supplement their income, but they would be renting to family members too. There wasn't a lot of conversation about renting to strangers. It was a lot of really family-oriented conversations at the meetings and at the public hearings. So we do recommend and hope there is strong oversight to be able to do this, to be able to make sure that it is not manipulated in a way that's not good for the East Tampa CRA. But I want to just thank also Kim Hedlund, because she was very patient, because there were lots of questions about this from the community, lots of wanted to have clarification, and we hope that you support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman? Oh, she's still smiling. Okay, there comes me.
Good afternoon. My name is Ernestine Keith, and I also used to go to Mr. Harvard's store and I lived in the projects from years ago. And I'm one of the neighbors with Ms. McCoy and Ms. Jackson behind me. and they have built two-story houses next to my house. And they just moved in there probably between April and June of this year, and they're already renting it out. And they have one of those big privacy fences up next to my chain link fence that I cannot see over, but I have seen vagrants before they moved in there go through the fence, do their little business, and come out. And now, during the storm, a tree hit the fence that kind of broke it in two. It's not falling apart yet, but it's leaning on my chain link fence. The owner didn't know about it. I just saw him the other day and told him he didn't know about it. So whoever is doing his property manager, they're not protecting his property. They're not investigating or keeping it clean. He said the backyard was like crap, and excuse my expression, but the tree limb is still hanging down. I pushed the tree limb off his fence so it wouldn't finish tearing up my fence. So it's not, I don't know if it's an Airbnb, I don't know who the property manager is, but I told him, I said, you need to check with your property manager because they're not taking care of your property. And they just built these houses this year, and it's already being rented out, and strangers are coming in and out all the time, sitting on my property where I have to go and ask them, don't sit on my property and smoke it and leave all their cigarette butts there. So it is a problem. It's a two-way street, so strict enforcements need to really be checked with these new homes coming up, with the people who are living in them. They come in, they buy them, stay in there 3 months, and they're gone. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in chambers?
My name is Dolores Jackson, and I have to confess I don't even know what an ADU is. But I have the impression it relates to new building more so than to generational homes. I may be wrong about that, but I will find out. I want to comment on the fact that there's certain builders coming into East Tampa whose building practices, especially where I live, on 15th Avenue near 23rd Street, has brought in a whole set of problems that my family has been in our home since the 1950s. I was raised by my grandfather in what we called Ybor City at the time, now East Tampa, in the 1950s, early 60s. Never in all these years have I experienced the kind of problems that I'm seeing now that are directly related to new construction happening next to my home. Some of the builders, I don't understand who is overseeing their work, because at 2208 East 15th, there was a porta potty there. This construction started, I think, in late 2021 into 2022, and they're still working on it because the builder would send workers and they'd work for 3 weeks, and then for 2 months, nothing happens. The porta potty is there. It is a lure for the undesirables that you know inhabit the area around 15th Avenue, 14th Avenue, 22nd Street, at exit 1 of I-4. There's a Burger King and a McDonald's there. You know the problems that exist there. The city, I don't mean you personally. The city is aware of the problems of panhandling and the type of people that collect in that area. I mentioned this builder because the mere fact that he doesn't lock the porta potty invites those characters into the porta potty all times of the day and night, drugs and prostitution and other things taking place. So you're talking about ADUs and fences and setbacks and transparencies, but these construction workers need to be held to a stricter standard when they bring their crews into our neighborhood They leave these construction sites unattended, and certain of the, I guess that means I have to stop, right?
30 seconds more, ma'am.
Oh, okay. I wish that there was more oversight on the construction projects themselves, because they have introduced a whole new set of problems to the area, causing me to have to sell a home that has been in my family. I am the third generation. I wanted to leave it to the fifth generation. The fourth generation wants to sell. The fifth, at 9 years old, I'd like her to have the home, but I'm thinking now of selling my home, merely because a new project was set up next to my home under building conditions that are just atrocious. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak public comment? Councilman Goods.
Let me say this. You know, as the conversations arise, other things come into the pot. And Mr. Maniscalco brought it into the pot. You know, it's a new ploy is the Airbnb style now. So I don't know if any regulations can be put on that as it relates to the ADU system or city ordinance about the ADUs in this Airbnb situation. I don't know, and we have to research as a reference to occupied, owner-occupied, when you talk about these ADUs in communities, to make sure we don't have some of the things that we are talking about through discussion. I think that's important to see how we can have oversight. You know, then we brought up the construction stuff, which we've had issues about construction all year long about construction workers. So hopefully we're going to be able to get a handle on that soon, so people can clean up their mess and, you know, lock up these porta potties, because they do attract people undesirables in communities. And everything you brought up is totally correct. I just think we need to find out how our housing department, construction service, or whoever, how we can come up with ideas in reference to enforcement of the ADU Airbnb system, to make sure that we are not having that transient behavior. Like Ms. Jackson feels the same with the new construction. They're really Airbnbs, but they got people living there. Every week you got somebody, and it's causing a problem. So I do understand that. So maybe if they are applying for that there be some stipulations that it will not be that kind of type of residence and so forth. But I think now with the conversation, and we're talking about these Tampa folks are here, so they have some concerns. You know, and again, hope we can look at some things, Ms. Dodd. Maybe you can bring some things back to us before we finalize the ADU to see how we can have some restrictions. Also, I want to see if possibly Senator Hargett is here. He's right. I'm surprised that Lake wasn't added in there. So maybe Lake can be added into that process. It's not too late, because I think he's right, because it all connects up in there. And I think that's important, with Lake Avenue to be connected from 15th Street down to at least 34th, at least. See, can we come back up again? Want to talk? There's a ghost in here, isn't it?
No, there's not. There's someone that's going to be coming up. Thank you, Ms. Travis. Thank you, Ms. Travis.
Okay. All right, the boss lady's on, so she must got something to say.
Then I'm going to recognize Ms. Travis.
All right.
Thank you. Ms. Travis.
Thank you, Councilman or Chairman Citro, very much. And so just in response to the comments that I was hearing, in 2208 East 15th, we'll definitely have our construction services team go out and look into that. And I think the comments that you're hearing are not necessarily related to ADU. It's the transient population that we need to get a hold on. And so I'm gonna work with JC, our building official, as well as Keith O'Connell with code enforcement, because some of this is code enforcement issues that we're talking about, and see how we can work towards heightened awareness and security and citing people to come into compliance. And so I think the ADUs, the concern about ADUs is just adding another layer to what we don't want. But to your point, Councilman Goods, earlier, we have a housing crisis. And so when you're looking at, generational living options, as well as we need to make sure that we stay on top of the code enforcement and building pieces. So I'll definitely get with those two teams and bring that back to you guys if there are any policy recommendations or legislative recommendations, including the conversations about accessory dwelling units. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Maniscalco.
Real quick, a couple of things. I think we're preempted by the state from regulating Airbnbs. I'm not sure, but there's issues there. Second, just real quick, an ADU is an accessory dwelling unit, which means like a mother-in-law suite in your backyard kind of situation to a certain square footage. And what it would mean, what we're looking at is you have to live in the house. You know, the owner has to live in the main house. They are allowed to rent the unit, which is has a maximum, I don't know if it's 900 square feet, I forgot what the number was, but they can then rent it. Then if it's a certain size, it has to have a parking space for it. So it's basically like a mother-in-law suite. But the owner of the property has to live on the property. It can't be an investor coming in and buying all the houses on the street, renting out the main house, and then renting, you know, the person who owns it, you know, John Smith, lives in that house, they can rent it. In regards to the portalets and the construction sites, I talked to a police officer Tuesday. This is over on Columbus in Florida, so I'm assuming he's in that area. But they had a call the other day where they had a deceased male in a portalet, and it wasn't someone working on that construction site. It was a random individual that they found.
That's what Hubert.
So you've heard, okay, so you heard about that too. So we have issues, not just people going in. Now you have somebody who's deceased in there. So whatever the situation was, I don't know. But Ms. Travis responded to that in speaking with Mr. Hutchinson and then code enforcement and whatnot. So she's aware then. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? Ms. Doc, Ms. Headland, I saw you up waving your hands. Is there something else you would like to add?
I did just want to make a couple of clarifications specifically regarding Lake Avenue there, and forgive me, I didn't get too far into the specifics of the code language, but there are two sections in the non-residential that deal with parking incentives. One related to the main streets that were identified as part of the strategic action plan. The other tackles all of existing commercial structures that, like the Lake Avenue structures, that would also, for their reuse, adaptive reuse, or even just continued use, would have parking incentives in place. So I think Lake Avenue in that sense would be covered. The ADUs, I think Councilman touched on it already. We had this discussion at length during a few of the earlier public meetings regarding ADUs this year, or with this broader overlay discussion. It was in our discussions in East Tampa, owner-occupied properties. So you weren't having an investor that then created a duplex. Although that being said, I think points well taken from the community and from council here today, and I think Ms. Doc will be able to outline how we can go back and discuss those issues with the community and make sure everybody's as informed as possible going forward. I would also just like to point out that we've been working on this since 2016. That's 6 years of an enormous amount of volunteer community effort, meeting after meeting after meeting, and lots of folks digging in and learning the zoning code language that isn't always the easiest. I just think kudos to this entire East Tampa community who have listened and participated for 6 years to kind of bring these issues to be able to update this, because it hasn't been updated since the East Tampa CRA was created. So just kudos to the community for kind of digging in and sticking with it for 6 years.
Councilman Miranda.
I just want to, I'm one of those that thinks about the what if. What if something happens that we don't know about? Let me give you an example. Party A, very nice people, they buy a house and they build something for the mother-in-law. They live there 5 or 6 years. Everything is copacetic, everything is beautiful. Party A, however, gets a hankering to sell the house. They sell the house. What do you think is going to happen next? We don't know. You know why? Because we can't keep a record of it. And I can give you some examples. When many years ago, we had some swales built to houses so that the water would be retained in that property. All of a sudden, I buy it, and my wife and I don't have a wife, but I'm just saying my wife and I are there, and everything is copacetic. We're doing exactly what we say. The swales are there, but I sell it to Mr. and Mrs. X 5 years later. They move in. Everything is fine. However, one of them tells the other, you know, I don't like those swales. I want to plant some flowers. Guess what happens? They bring in some topsoil, they cover the swales, they plant the flowers. Now the flooding starts. How do you stop it? It's not in the, when you go check the records, if you sell it, it's not in the courts item that you have 2 swales that got to be maintained. That's not there. What happens then? What I'm saying is I want to make sure, like the rest of us, I guess, and I'm not speaking for them, I want to make sure that what happens here stays there forever. I don't want no what ifs. Because what if is too late to help all of us included. And that's what I want to avoid. I want to help the people. I want to have more housing like anybody else. But I do not want one iota of doubt that that's going to change without somebody knowing about it. And there's where we have the problem. Not in the mechanisms, but in the what ifs. And that's where I'm at. Thank you very much.
Councilman Goods.
And again, I'm not the property appraiser or tax collector, but the what if when a person applies for this special use, that it's recorded in the property appraiser's office, a tax collector, whatever, that way we know if it's sold or resold, it still has to be maintained as that. Is that possible?
LaShawn, Doc, Development Coordination, Councilman Goods, that would be hard to track. I mean, the special use is processed through the Development Coordination Office. You're talking about something that would be recorded outside of that realm. So it's something to look at and consider, but I just want you all to know, all council members to know, and the public to know that we hear you, we hear the concern. I've spoken with Kim. We're going to remove the ADU language for now from the request. They're going to do outreach, further outreach to the community, come back to you by first reading to let you know the outreach which has occurred, how many meetings were held, and also provide you with the community feedback regarding the ADU language. So that way, by the time we're back at first reading, council, you will have had this discussion on the larger picture of the ADUs and have voted on recommended standards for those ADUs.
Can you have, Sean, can you have legal look into that what if Mr. Randall is talking about? See what if we can do to block that, just in case? Is that possible?
Certainly, we, council, yes, and legal is here and shaking her head, yes.
Thank you.
They can look into it. So I just want to make sure we have that understanding. That language would be on hold until we are, to outreach, further outreach occurs. And then we will report that back to you. The applicant will at the time of first reading. We can also move first reading back a month or so if needed. Just to make sure everyone, we have the message out, everyone has a clear understanding of ADUs and the effects of ADUs. And with that, council, if it is your desire, with that understanding.
Wait a second, I apologize. Councilman Carlson.
Sorry, just real quick. I just want to say thanks to all of our honored guest members of the public. Thanks for all your leadership and your feedback. The only way we can make the community better is to listen to the community and make sure we work with the community. So we appreciate you all being here. The second thing, and I'm not asking for an answer right now, but yesterday I talked to a couple of attorneys, and it seems to me that despite the state preemption on Airbnbs, there must be some way to set up these ADUs to not allow them. For example, I brought the question yesterday about homesteaded properties and if ADUs are required there. I don't need an answer right now, but I wonder if there's some category we can set up for the ADUs that wouldn't qualify for the Airbnbs. But we can talk about that another time. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you, Councilman Carlson. So yes, if it is council's desire, we would move this to Planning Commission for Planning Commission briefing and public hearing. Thank you so much, council.
We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor? Aye. Ms. Doc, thank you very much for your report. And everybody involved, thank you for being here and expressing your concerns and your comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chairman and Council, LaShawn Dock Development Coordination, we have the last privately initiated text amendment for you today. This request is an amendment to the Central Business District to the periphery. This request is again, a privately initiated amendment, and of course, this is one of the two amendments that are part of the January 2022 amendment cycle. The applicant is Tyler Hudson. The request is to amend 3 sections of the code, one relating to the off-street parking spaces, the loading spaces, and also the landscape area and tree planting requirements. So the change requested would be effective for the Central Business District periphery, which has been identified on this map, which is bounded by East Palm Avenue to the north. Boulevard is the western boundary. And the northern boundary jogs to 4th Avenue. And so this would include all properties located within that area. So the request would amend the parking standards for residential multifamily uses, and this would amend it to 1 space per unit. This would remove the visitor parking requirement. This also would allow for parking trade-offs. So there would be a footnote added in the parking table as it exists today, and it would reference the CBD periphery with those standards, in addition to the landscape requirements and how they are calculated. So what I'm going to do is turn it over to Tyler Hudson. It's Tyler Hudson and Alex Shaler on the line. I believe they are online virtually. And they're the applicants, and they have a presentation for you today. And I'm available, council, if you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Dock?
Thank you.
No. Thank you, Ms. Dock.
Good afternoon, Council. Alex Shaler, 400 North Ashley Drive. It is just me today. Tyler will not be joining, and I do have a presentation that I'm going to pull up. Let's see if I can. Can you all see this PowerPoint?
Yes, can you please enlarge it?
Yes. Okay, so as LaShawn, thanks for setting this up. I'm representing this privately initiated text amendment that Tyler and I filed in January of this year, and this is directly in relation to projects within the CBD periphery. Before I dive into the location, I wanted to give a little bit of a brief background on why we submitted this request and kind of the basis for this amendment. So this isn't related to a single application. It's more retroactive in nature. So as we've had time to reflect on a lot of different applications that we've brought before you in the CBD periphery, you probably remember that many of them have the same set of 6 or 7 waivers. Those waivers specifically relating to urban development. And we expect that our future projects will contain similar waivers. And so this seems like a worthwhile opportunity with the last cycle of privately initiated text amendments to adjust some of this language in the code to better assist some of this development in the CBD periphery. And to manage expectations up front, we don't necessarily believe that this amendment will eliminate or necessarily even reduce the amount of PDs brought before you, but we do think that it will absolutely reduce the number of waiver requests associated with each of those PDs. So LaShawn described the CBD periphery as recognized in the comprehensive plan. As you can see on the screen, the northern boundary is Palm. It wraps around coming down Nebraska, jutting to 15th, and then down wrapping around the southern part of Harbor Island, coming back up along North Boulevard. And it's important to note that the CBD periphery, I know you guys are familiar with this, projects located within this specific area are permitted to double their density. So if there are MU100, as an example, with 3.5 FAR, they could permit up to 7, with bonus provisions being met. So the proposed amendments that we have to the text of the code today are related to 4 sections. And again, I think you'll be pretty familiar with a lot of these different sections of code: parking, loading, green space, and buffering. So we'll kick it off with parking. And we wanted to start this off by summarizing this language, and essentially what this is said. This is the proposed language, but to shorten this, we're essentially proposing that the parking ratios in the CBD periphery match the parking ratios for projects located in the CBD. So for a little bit of color behind this specific request, as you all are familiar with, we've seen very recently a lot of development is springing up in the CBD periphery, and a lot of these projects closely mirror the projects in the CBD in terms of project nature. So we're seeing high density, we're seeing both multifamily and office, we're seeing a lot of projects that are mixed use in nature, we're seeing an increased and extensive pedestrian infrastructure. And as we move to, as a city, towards creating goals that are, walkability and trans-oriented and bike travel, it's important that we update the code to support this. The second parking request we have is in relation to visitor parking specifically, and that is to remove the visitor parking requirement for projects within the CBD periphery. This is already done in a host of different special districts within the CBD periphery, Ybor City, Channel District, downtown. So this amendment would essentially take those other pockets throughout the CBD periphery and bring those up into the same, be reflected under the same requirement of no visitor parking. And the last parking amendment that we have proposed is in relation to on-street parking, and that's to allow any parallel parking immediately adjacent to the site provided on street to count towards 25% of a required parking count for the project. And again, this is something that we found because we see it often. And currently, whenever you submit for a rezoning application on that site plan, if you have parallel parking proposed, it can be shown, but it has to be shaded back and it has to be labeled as conceptual. It has to be noted that it does not count towards the overall parking count required for the project. There's a host of different benefits of on-street parking, and I have some of them shown on the screen from different perspectives. So from transportation standpoint, traffic calming is one of the benefits. There's buffering for the sidewalks. Speaking logistically, a reduced garage footprint as we're providing more on-street versus in the garage. And perhaps notably most important is this easier access to the ground floor. So many of the projects that we've done, if not every project that we have brought before this council, has that at least small to large component of ground floor retail or commercial office use. That's that storefront residential use in the code. So by providing this parallel parking on street and allowing it to count, it's just easier for people to access these different amenities, and it activates street level as it's easier to just pull into a parallel spot as in going all the way into a garage. So moving on from parking, the next section is loading, and I think that you all are incredibly familiar with these loading waivers that we typically request. So to summarize this is pretty straightforward. We're essentially proposing that projects in the CBD periphery are only required to have one loading berth per development instead of based off of its square footage number, and then also to allow that single loading berth to be accessed with more than one continuous maneuver. This is inspired by what is currently permitted in the West Shore Marina District, and we feel as if most of the development that we've been doing in the CBD periphery is inherently more dense than the West Shore Marina District, but again, using some of their language and the idea behind this loading reduction. And it is important to note too that projects in the actual CBD, although they're held to the same loading standards as a general code, they're often reduced throughout the DDR process. So similar to a PD in requesting it, but it doesn't require an actual waiver. It's something that's approved during that preliminary design process specific to the CBD. The next section is in relation to green space, and this one is a little bit technical, and I want to spend a little bit more time in this one because it's important to note that we are not proposing any kind of reduction in green space requirements in the CBD periphery, more so just an application of one standard across the board. So currently the way the code reads, it's that multifamily greater than 6 floors, 6 or greater floors, is permitted to use a percentage calculation to calculate the amount of green space that they're required to provide on site. Smaller projects that are less than 6 stories in height are held to a per unit green space requirement. And so what we're proposing here with this amendment would be to require this percentage calculation to be applied to all multifamily developments within the CBD periphery, regardless of how tall the building is. And I have a graphic shown here on the screen, and I think it's a really great visual illustration of essentially how much green space is required on that percentage calculation basis. So you have that green box in the top right, which is essentially a blank parcel. The way this is calculated, you subtract the building footprint from your parcel area. So I have the building footprint shown there. And then beyond that, you multiply this by 30%. So as you can see on the screen, the lower flag-shaped green image on the screen is essentially the amount of green space you're required to provide based off of that top green box, that's a rectangle, using this percentage calculation. So as you can see, it's not a ton. Like I said, subtract the building footprint, multiply by 30%. It's a relatively small number, given the fact that all of this is urban development in the CBD periphery. So putting this into numbers, I think that, like I said, this is a little bit technical, but I think this was a really, really good representation in some of the deficiencies in the current code. And using that per unit calculation, which, as I mentioned, is currently required for shorter buildings, 5 stories or below. You would take your number of units, so take 100 units multiplied by 750 square foot per unit. That's the current green space requirement for projects that don't include VUA, so essentially that include a parking garage. You're looking at about 1.7 acres of required green space. Moving on to 200 units was just relatively normal proposal within the CBD periphery, requiring just about 3.4 acres of green space. Now, as you can see, when you hit something like 300 units, which is a moderate amount of density proposed within the CBD periphery, it's a number that we've included on many of our projects, requiring 225,000 square feet of green space, which is a little over 5 acres. So speaking logically, we don't have too many projects, if any, located in the CBD periphery that even include a total parcel area of 5 acres, let alone an additional 5 acres to set aside for green space. So the theory behind this is you can see the percentage calculation table that's included below. This is based off of example projects. Given this calculation is formed via the land area and the building footprint, this is specific to a certain site. But I just wanted to give some different examples utilizing a range of units. So as you can see, for smaller development, 54 units, we're sitting at about 5,900 square feet of required green space. Again, this is based off of parcel area, building footprint. That's how you times 30%, how you get to that number. Moving up to a moderate size development at 236 units, as you can see, that green space number doesn't really change. And then as you can see, going to the 532 units, this is a project that was recently approved in the Channel District, the required green space hovering right at about 5,000 square feet. So it's important to note that all of this is within a similar range, and that's because the building footprint to the parcel area, that ratio isn't changing. Because as mentioned, this is all urban development. It's all minimal setbacks. You've got a lot of land cover from the building. So as you can see, what is required from this percentage calculation is 0.14, 0.13, 0.12 acres, vastly, vastly smaller than what is required on that per unit calculation. So as a summary, like I said, I know this is technical, this is a lot of math, a lot of numbers, but what we're proposing here essentially is to take that percentage calculation, which is currently permitted for multifamily 6 stories or greater, and apply that to all multifamily, varying levels below 6 floors. We have seen in the past, we've had a couple different developers that have increased building height, again, adding unnecessary height just to utilize this percentage calculation for a green space requirement to avoid a waiver. So this is something that I said we've seen on past projects, and in order to kind of apply this across the board, we think that makes sense in the CBD periphery specifically. The last request we have is in relation to buffering, and this one is more of trying to clarify the interpretation of the code than necessarily to change it. What we're proposing here, the adjacent use, as you can see, that's what's highlighted on the screen. We're asking that be interpreted as the then existing use on the adjacent property and not all of the permitted uses that could be allowed within the zoning district. The reason we say this is because the then existing use on an adjacent site is tangible. It's there, we can see what it is, we can design towards that. When trying to plan around the most intense use that could potentially in the future maybe be placed on the site, our buffers then become inherently conservative. And again, in an urban area like the CBD periphery, this is very limiting. So the thought process behind this is to take that larger umbrella of the zoning and have the actual allowable uses as it's referred to in the table be what is interpreted and what is held to for this. And as I mentioned, reflect what is on site at the time of a new proposed development, what is actually surrounding that use at that time. So with that, I will open it up for questions, for comments. Happy to receive your feedback, and we're thankful to LaShawn because she worked really hard to help us get this prepared. And like I said, I imagine there will be questions, so I'm happy to answer all of those. And thanks for your time.
Who wants to go first?
So moved. No, it was very self-explanatory and things that we already know. She was very detailed. So.
Councilman Miranda.
I understand I don't think the young lady took a breath of air.
Yes.
Anyway, I understand what the object is, to have less parking spaces and more centralized, but we don't really have a transportation system.
Thank you.
That comes to that point. And it's sad that we may never have, or not in the near future, a transportation system to be able to adjust to what the presenter just presented. It's when you hear about all the millenniums that want to ride bikes, that's fine. All that want to walk, that's fine. But then I go out and I look at Plain High School parking. Then I go out to Jefferson High School. Then I go to Hillsborough. Then I go to University of Tampa. And there's now one empty space. I tell myself, I must be lying. My eyes are lying to me. And these are the things that I look at. And I'm a realist. I'm not a professional or anything, but I realize what's happening. And I agree with what she said. But my practicality of life, the other day there was a zoning here on North Boulevard, and it had .002. And University of Tampa standard is .004. And they're full. So I can imagine what's going to happen to the one with .002. And the university already told them here in City Hall, if your people come and park where we're at, we're going to tow the cars away. So that's what we're getting to. I'm not against doing anything that's reasonable. I'm not saying this is not reasonable, but it's, in my mind, we don't have the transportation system to realize the facts that were presented. Because if we had one, we wouldn't have the problem. Then I could say, yes, in New York City, you can have all you want. But what do they have that we don't have? Transportation of all kinds. They have everything. And here, we can't even get, way back, I never forget a gentleman named Harry Orr, who was head of the City of Tampa bus system. Some of you don't even know we had a bus system here.
Tampa Transit. Yes,
Tampa
we did.
Transit, and they were right there on Cleveland Street. And one day I'm walking down, he's walking down the steps, and I'm right there with, where the elevators are. He tells me, let me tell you something. I say, yes, Harry. And he tells me this, I'm not going to see it, but you are. He says, the day you take $1 from the federal government for your bus system is the day the buses all go you know where. Because you're going to have to travel from here to Waimama for 25 cents and lose $80 in taking that person there. I'll never forget what he told me. And he was 110% correct. The bus system doesn't work for various reasons. First of all, the density. And then the progress that we made. You see, when I lived in the housing projects, or the condominiums of Tampa, I used to call them, no one had a car. There was none in the block. I was thinking about it today. Only one person in maybe 30 units had one car. One. The rest of us took the bus. We walked from 26th Avenue and 20th Street all the way to Jefferson, and no one was late. Now you got 40 kids in a bus, and the bus is late. So what I'm saying is, we lost it. No one had nothing, and everybody was happy. Everybody got the bus. For a nickel, get a transfer, go somewhere else, come back. I think it was 10 cents or 15 cents a ride. Now, I don't know what it is, I haven't got a bus in years. You see, the parents say, oh, my kid ain't going to get a car. That's what they say when they're 12. When they're 16, you go say to your father, hey, I want a car just like everybody else. The next day, you got a car. Not like that everywhere, but that's the society we've grown to be. So everybody has a car. Whether I like it or not, go check with the auto tag agency, see if the cars haven't go up in registration. Also, your insurance. It's getting to be that you can't live anywhere. So it just, I understand what the presenter said, but I got to have proof of what she said, because my eyes are lying to me. They're lying to me, and I want to have an eye check. There's something wrong the way we present things and the reality of life. I'm not saying she's wrong. I'm saying I can't equate to it because my eyes, what I see, is not what I hear. And anybody wants to challenge me, let's go out for a ride. That's all I can say.
Councilman Goods.
Well, I don't want to say old timer, but you're right, sir. You go to any high school parking lot, and everyone's driving. Everyone's driving. I mean, my knees are bad, so I'm not walking too much. And if I wanted to get the job at Amazon, even though they're laying off now, I couldn't get there because it take me almost 3 to 4 hours to get there. If I took a bus from East Tampa out to the lot, out to Amazon, it'd probably be 3 hours before I get there. We don't have a system yet. cars are still prevalent right now. It's unfortunate. Cars are still here. And where you going to park these cars? I know we want parking minimums. I know you want to get rid of parking, but how can you get rid of parking when so many people are driving cars still? Let's look at the reality of things. The reality of people that drive cars in Tampa. We're in the South. We're not in the North where you got all this transit system. Your transportation tax failed twice on us. You know, I don't know if we're there yet. I know parking garages, they cost so much money per parking space, and that hurts us with the developers and trying to get affordable housing, attainable housing, some of these things, because you're talking about $30,000 for one space when you're building a parking garage. There are a lot of issues. How are we going to solve them? But I think the presentation was great, but I'm just trying to figure out where you're going to park these cars at. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else?
So moved.
Okay, I'll go ahead. I'm sorry. Is there anyone here for public comment? Anyone online? I'll reserve my comments for when we get deeper dive into this.
So moved.
We have a motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by?
This is to transmit it
To the Planning Commission, correct. LaShawn Dock Development Coordination Council, yes.
Is there a second? Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Carlson.
I'm going to vote for it, but again, when it comes back, I got to have the evidence shown to me before I vote for it for real.
I'll reserve my comments for then. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Sir, Mr. Chairman, while we have Ms. Dock here, I just want to confirm one thing with City Council. I hadn't brought this up previously.
We need to vote on this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, Council.
5:01 start. Your calendars for your evening meetings still say 5:01, and I want to just confirm that that's council's intention to continue to meet for your evening meetings beginning at 5:01.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes, Council, starting in January, we will be back to the regular schedule where rezonings are heard on rezoning nights and alcoholic beverage sales petitions are heard on alcohol nights at the last night of the month, the way that we did it prior to adding in the additional nights. So since we started at 5:01, we just want to make sure that starting the new year, the desire is to have these hearings start at 5:01, or do we want it to go back to 6 p.m.? 5:01 start time.
We have so much that why waste the hour?
Yeah.
Keep it going.
Okay, all
5:01
right.
is better.
Well, thank you so much, Council.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
Councilman Carlson.
Are we caught up to the backlog now?
We are caught up. If an applicant applies today for a rezoning, they don't have that extension that they would have had previously. 6 months ago, they would have had to wait an extra 4 months.
So nobody will be telling applicants that city council doesn't have time for them. It's on a
Correct. We are
schedule.
caught up today. The 4 additional nights
All right,
helped
thank
us, so we appreciate it, Council. Absolutely. And thank you for hearing the cases today.
You might as well make it official. Do you want to make it official?
Motion
Clerk?
to continue meeting or beginning the meetings at 5:01
Second.
p.m.
Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Information reports. Councilman Miranda.
None, sir.
Councilman Goods.
I have a few, don't hate me for it, but I have a few today. I'd like the Tampa City Council to give Valentia Berry a commendation for her hard work and dedication to the city of Tampa and her leadership with the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Inc. on January 10th.
Motion made by Councilman Goods, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
These next three are kind of dear to my heart. As you know, you might not know, Mr. Artis Gambrell did finally pass on early Monday morning. As you know, he was one of the longest African-American employees, recreation park within the city of Tampa. He pretty much ran the east side of town, all our parks and recs. Everyone is sad and heartbroken. I got the calls immediately when it happened. And again, I've got a few things I want to say about this. I would like the administration to give the Artis Gambrell family a key to the city for his dedication to the city of Tampa and a long-time invested employee with the Parks and Recreation.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Goods, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Mr. Chairman, just a question with regard to that. I don't recall the council in the past doing keys to the city, and I don't.
Well, I'm
remember-
asking
so it's a request
asking the
that you ask
administration.
mayor. That's, I just thought I heard you say, yeah, okay.
All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you.
All right, next one is, that the Tampa City Council give a posthumously commendation to be presented off-site to Mr. Archie Gambrell for his dedication to impacting change in his community and the city of Tampa.
Motion made by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
And the last one, there's been a lot of talk about our East Tampa Regional Park. I know Mr. Maniscalco came behind me and wanted something over at a building, something named over there with Alton White. Moses White, because he was mostly an East Tampa, West Tampa person, but that was fine. But I also made a motion prior in reference to the regional park itself. And again, I'm asking the administration to provide an update on the naming of the East Tampa Regional Complex from Mr. Archie Gambrell, report back on December 1st.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Good, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Councilman Maniscalco.
A happy Thanksgiving to everyone that is celebrating. Thank you, that's it.
Councilman Vieira.
Really fast, if I may, a motion to present commendations to George Edgecombe Bar Association on their 40th anniversary, and to the Hillsborough Association for Women Lawyers, also on their 40th anniversary.
Motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
I motion for a commendation to be given to St. Mark's Catholic Church, St. Vincent de Paul Ministry for their outreach.
Motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
And all off premises, of course. And then lastly, if I may, I motion for a commendation, and Suling, I'll give you the information on this, and I'm gonna, to the Baps Shri SWAMINARAUAN Mandir. That's the local Hindu temple for their work they do in the community on the forthcoming 100th anniversary of the birth of their guru, which they will be celebrating on Saturday.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Vieira, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, that's it.
Thank you, Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, a few quick ones, please. The Florida Orchestra would like to give us a 10-minute update, so I'd like to make a motion to ask the Florida Orchestra to give a 10-minute update to Tampa City Council on February 2nd after staff reports.
Second. Motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco.
That's February
2nd.
after staff reports?
Yeah.
What time would that be then? I mean, it's not a time certain, obviously.
Well, what do you recommend?
Well,
Oh, after ceremony? I'm sorry.
well, it depends on, is there a ceremonial day? What day?
What do you think,
Sue?
Suling? What do you-
Is it just a presentation?
Yeah.
February, and how long does that run?
5 minutes?
Yeah, they asked for up to 10 minutes, but that's including, I think, questions. I told them they shall only speak for 5, but.
Sure.
When, should I put after,
Just at 9 a.m. or it's back presentations?
okay, in ceremonial activities.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, also, we talked a lot about ADUs today, and we heard a lot of confusion about it. South Tampa thought that they were excluded from the ADUs, and so although there were a couple of public meetings, the neighborhoods and citizens for sure don't know anything about what's happening with the ADUs. I talked yesterday to staff, and Nicole talked to her staff, and she gave me these two motions to propose. One is that one of the problems is the central planning district includes the neighborhoods in Hyde Park and part of South Tampa, and so these neighborhoods feel blindsided by the fact that they were included. So my first motion, which again is coming from staff, is to remove all the areas south of Kennedy, and then the second motion is to ask staff to begin a 6-month process to engage the neighborhoods in South Tampa, and then come back on April 27th. So I'll make the first motion. Move to direct staff to remove all areas south of Kennedy Boulevard, including Harbor Island, Davis Island, from the proposed areas for accessory dwelling units, and the pending ordinance due back to council on December 1st.
We have a motion made by Councilman Carlson. Is there a second? Motion made by Councilman Carlson. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Let me ask a question, if I may, sir, just briefly. So, is your motion to have then ADUs prospectively come back after proper community engagement has been done?
Yeah, the second
Okay,
motion
yeah.
is that the staff wants 6 months to properly engage the community, because the neighborhoods in South Tampa thought they were excluded. They didn't participate in the limited community engagement there was, so the staff has agreed to give them more. If other parts of the city want more public engagement, I think they could ask for it as well, but the neighborhoods in South Tampa in particular have asked for this.
Councilman Miranda.
I understand, I appreciate everything you're saying, but I think we gotta either pass them all or not pass them all at the same time. We can't have this one coming in and by February 2nd, I think it is for first reading. Yeah. Is my memory correct?
I think it's December
The second
1st.
reading on February 16th of 2023, well, this is gonna come back months later. I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I'm saying I would feel much better if it both came together.
Consensus on everything.
If you all want to move all of them to April, we can, but that's the staff saying they need 6 months. April 27th is the farthest the calendar goes out, and it's a little bit less than 6 months, but I will leave that up to you. But South Tampa, we'll have a lot of people at public comment if we don't move.
I understand, I appreciate it very much.
May we, if I may?
Councilman.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe, because I sense some resistance, and I understand if folks want more time on it, maybe we could have prospectively look at having the ordinance come back to us in February, and then give that time to engage your constituents, because again, I think that both are valued propositions.
And staff is saying that just for South Tampa, they need 6 months. So I mean, I can make the motion to continue there's Nicole. Nicole, what do you want to do?
Well, I think that we have already went on a certain track, and there was a lot of conversation about excluding South Tampa area, and we know that I was the first one to say that staff proposed to move forward with the Central Planning District, and it includes certain parts of Hyde Park, as Councilman Carlson said. So I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, if you will. If the intent is to allow for staff to meet and do a little more public engagement for everything south of Kennedy, I cannot do it by February. The date that Councilman Carlson proposed, I think is reasonable, and we should be able to accommodate additional conversations for the south of Kennedy neighborhoods. And so should you be inclined to deviate from the draft ordinance that's coming before you on December 1st, I'd ask that you make that motion so that legal knows how to prepare the motion. Then we could come back and bring the other areas that needed additional concern. We thought that this was the best way to continue to move forward with the accessory dwelling units with housing as a crisis, and as you have directed us to. We think this is a fair way to move forward and still schedule the time that we need to have the conversations for the neighborhood south of Kennedy.
Councilman Goods.
I knew this was gonna happen. I knew this was gonna happen. You know, we talk about equality and equity. That's what we say we're supposed to strive on in this dais. I would have a serious problem saying we're just gonna exclude certain neighborhoods. If we're saying we're gonna do ADUs because of housing in the city, how do we exclude one neighborhood versus another neighborhood? I just have a real problem with that. I mean, however it comes back, but I just have a problem saying we're gonna exclude one area of town and another area of town has to have it, and another area of town. That's not right. I don't care how you look at it. We're a city, supposed to be a city of diversity, of equity and equality, and I just would have a problem of saying or supporting anything that says that one area of town, to me, and what people will think, oh, it's again, they're better than us, or I just have a problem with that. Not saying that's the whole basis of what somebody want or don't want, but it looks bad. It just looks bad to say that one area is saying, no, we don't want it here, in another area, and I just feel bad.
Mr. Chair, there's a false narrative being pushed by some activists that South Tampa's against it, or South Tampa thinks they're too good for it, or anything like that. The bottom line here is South Tampa hasn't been informed about it at all. And so they're not against it. In fact, there are a lot of ADUs already in South Tampa, but there are lots of little neighborhoods, just like, there are historic neighborhoods in East Tampa and in other places. You can't just go in and not talk to each of these neighborhoods about how these things affect them individually. And what the staff is saying is that if you want to move forward with the other areas, which they're prepared to do, if the other neighborhoods aren't against it, you can move forward. South Tampa is not saying they don't want it. They're saying they just want to know about it because they don't know anything about it. And instead of having a whole bunch of people showing up on December 1st, the staff is recommending that we just move it to a different timeline. And I think they'll come back and say, yeah, we're fine with it under certain circumstances or whatever, and maybe it'll be the same thing as everybody else, but it's just providing a timeline so they can be engaged about it. And if other neighborhoods come back and say that they're not fully engaged and they want to delay, I'd be okay supporting that as well.
Ms. Travis, what type of timeline, to Councilman Carlson's point, are you comfortable with?
So I was just on the phone with Abby and Eric Cotton. So it won't come to you on December 1st because we need to notice it properly. So the earliest it'll come to you is January 26th. That's when that ordinance would come before you for the accessory dwelling unit. And if you wanted us to engage the neighborhoods south of Kennedy, what I had spoken to Councilman Carlson about yesterday was giving us at least 6 months to properly engage in more than one meeting with those neighborhoods. Again, you guys have said that housing is a crisis and that we need to move forward with all options. And that's what we have provided to you through the 2 workshops earlier this year. Recently, in late October, we came back with special use and some different options. This is moving this forward. And because the Central Planning District mostly excludes the South Tampa neighborhoods, except for certain areas in Hyde Park, those neighborhood residents were not a part of those conversations in the workshops. To be fair, they were never included in those conversations because we were talking about Central Planning District. And we knew that there were more conversations that need to be had. The historic patterns in Hyde Park and south of Kennedy is, they have accessory dwelling units. So I wanted to encourage you that if you want to move forward, we can move forward with the ordinances you had directed us to at the last workshop on January 26th and have the formal engagement. Give us 6 months to do that. I'm not sure what the date was that Councilman Carlson proposed, but I can't do it shorter than 6 months.
I said April 27th just because the calendar doesn't go out farther than that, but if you want to pick a later date, we can.
Councilman Vieira.
Thank you very much. And I think there's a way forward to satisfy both sides on this, which is potentially, and again, I'm not feeling my best. I think I have a cold or something, but is potentially having I know, I'm sorry, I know. No, and I'm fine otherwise, I promise. But it's going around. But yeah, I probably shouldn't have said that. My filter. I'm sorry. But is potentially looking at maybe continuing the whole thing. If it's coming at the end of January, we could look at it to continue at 70 or so days to accommodate both sides. Again, just throwing that out there. I don't know how people feel about it. Because if South Tampa wasn't properly engaged on it, right, that is a legitimate issue. But I understand council not wanting to do this piecemeal and wanting to look at the whole thing at once. Just.
And Mr. Chair.
Councilman Carlson.
Based on what staff is saying, they really would like to move forward as quickly as possible with the other one, and they're prepared to handle this. So I would like to go ahead and vote on the motion. And there are 2 parts of it. One is to just exclude south of Kennedy, and the second one is to bring it back on April 27th. So it's not that I can make it one motion if everybody wants, but the idea is not to exclude them permanently, just to bring them back on April 27th without having to delay everybody else.
Second. I'm going to yield to Mr. Shelby. I think that should be 2 motions.
I think that would be cleaner.
Okay, the motion is move to direct staff to remove, again, I got this motion from Nicole. Move to direct staff to remove all areas south of Kennedy Boulevard, including Harbor Island, Davis Island, from the proposed areas for accessory dwelling units and the pending ordinance due back to council on January 26th.
We have a motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Any further discussion?
I'm going to support the motion, but as long as the other motions that the communications come back, so we know that we're not excluding. Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Your second motion.
Second is move to ask staff to begin the community engagement process about accessory dwelling units for the area south of Kennedy Boulevard and report back to council on April 27th.
Motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you all. I have two more real fast. Sorry that one took so long. The Public Records Department has started requiring that if we want records, we need to go through GovQA, and I pull records occasionally, but now they're charging city council members for pulling public records, and maybe we can address this in an ordinance another time. But I think similar to Councilmember Miranda, I don't spend any of my city council budget. I buy all my own supplies, I buy all my own furniture, everything. And so I usually have a surplus that I give to charity. But what I'd like to do is just make a motion to transfer the money from my city council expense account that I don't use to be able to pay for public records. So I'd like to make a motion to ask the CFO's office to move $2,787.88 from my city council expense budget to the clerk's office for the purpose of paying for public records requests.
Councilman Goode.
Mr. Sheldon, maybe you need to look at that. Why would council need to be able to have to pay for public records? Maybe something you need to look into. I don't think he should have to take money out of his account for administration here. I'm sure administration is not paying for no public records requests.
Well, that's a question that has come up, and I have begun looking into it, and I did speak with Carl Brody, and there are new procedures in place. As you know, it's being handled by the Archives Division now, and there's a whole new process with GovQA, and decisions are being made. My understanding is that if it goes, that even this is my understanding, based on a conversation I had this week, that even city employees or city departments that are making public records requests have to go through GovQA, and if there are associated special service charges associated, pardon the redundancy, service charges associated with that, they are assessed. My understanding, based on your motion, is that you did something through GovQA. Is that correct?
Yeah, I like the transparency of it, that everybody in the city has to go through GovQA so we can all see. But I think we should make another motion another time about making public records accessible to officers of the city. But just for this purpose right now, I'd like to just make the motion to move and we can always, if they decide they don't want it, we can credit it back later. But
there's, in the past, when these sort of questions have come up with regard to records or requests, in years past, what's been happening is if it became, for whatever reason, an issue or not, the city council made it as a motion, so it was the body that was asking for it. The legislative branch of government making the request, and it was a vote of council that did that. I can look into that if council wishes me to do that. That's one option for being able to address this issue. But this is something that is new to me. I just learned about it this past week.
I have sympathy for my colleague, but I don't know if that public record or whatever it is, if it's $1, $100, or $5,000 that they're looking for. I don't know what it is. So if I knew, maybe we would have passed a law that all elected officials, including the administration and the legislative side, has to pay for their own public records if they request one. That way everybody's covered.
yeah, I think staff has decided that that we have to pay, but this is with our expense account, we can buy furniture, supplies, and go to events. And since I don't do any of that, I usually would just transfer this money to charity. The easiest thing to do is just move the money over for right now, and then we can work out an ordinance later. So.
And if I could just follow up with that, and I understand your reasoning, but for instance, your office does not spend the money, Councilmember Miranda's office does not spend the money. There are other council members who spend their money, for instance, conferences or other things that they need to do. And one of the issues is if it requires a mid-year budget change, that's a whole separate process to be able to replenish your account. And I don't know, and that's an area that this council has not gone before, especially with regard to public records. So if you want to make an inquiry.
Yeah, I've got more money than this in my account because I don't use any of it. So I just like to approval to move the money over.
A motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Mr. Shelby, I'm gonna go support it, but I still think you need to look into that. And I don't think that we should have to be paying for a public records request. I don't think the legislative branch, because I know they're not gonna be paying for that. So I don't think we should be penalized if he needs information about something that relates to the city. He shouldn't have to pay for that. And I stand by that. But I'll support it today, but I need you to look into that because I don't think we should have to be doing that. I'm sorry.
Well, I understand that's your sentiment. I don't know what the sentiment of city council is, if there's a consensus about that.
I asked you the sentiment with city council. What I asked you, sir, is to check on that.
Yes.
As a council member here, I'm asking you to check on that because I don't care what Mr. Miranda thinks, he thinks right now. I'm telling you what I believe, and I want you to look into because I don't believe that should be happening.
I understand that, sir. And thank you, and I'm sure that, as you said it to me, it's been heard by others as well, and I'll get you the answer. Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Last one real fast is, hopefully real fast, is the issue of, remember the issue came up of settlement contracts that were approved by the city attorney but not by city council. And we discussed at length in prior meetings about the implications of that, and the city attorney is coming back with an ordinance that we propose to handle these cases in the future. I sought my own outside legal counsel to see what my duty is as an officer of the city to try to prevent the city from having any liability and in regard to the ones that were not approved by city council in the last 4 years. And so the advice I got was that I have a duty to the public and voters to disclose and also to try to fix the problem. And so the issue is that they were not approved by city council, and the advice I've gotten outside is that they can be approved by city council retroactively. So I'd like to make a motion to ask legal staff to review all the settlement contracts / agreements that were over $25,000 that were signed without city council approval since 2018, and to report to council on January 19th during staff reports as to how council can approve them retroactively.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you. I'm not against totally of what was said just now. What I'm thinking in my head is the legal department is the only department that I know of that has that freedom because their lawyers they know what they're dealing with. We don't. They know what the liabilities could be if they did not make a settlement. We don't. They know what the chances are of winning. We don't. So if that's going to start, they may weaken that and we may get clobbered. If they don't settle something and we take it, we reject it, and it goes to court, and you're going to be paying a $2 million thing instead of paying a $50,000 settlement. That's what I'm saying.
So that's in regard to the ordinance they're going to come back with later. This is just about the ones over the last 4 years that were not approved. And all I'm asking is that the city attorney review them with us and then come back to us with their advice on what we should do to retroactively approve them. The outside advice I've gotten is that city council, since they were signed without city council, and I'm trying to be careful not to talk about this too much here. We can if you want, but since they were approved without city council approval, and the charter requires the city council to approve it, the best legal course that I've gotten advice on is that we should approve them retroactively, and we could likely do it all at once.
I can only say on my part, I'm not sure the city charter says that about the legal department. The legal department is a separate department that deals with a highly sensitive thing of this whole corporation. That's what we are, a big company. And when we start looking at what they do or they don't do, it's going to become a drag on the city, and it's going to be maybe cost more than what we think. And I'm not an attorney, maybe Mr. Eric can come in You chime in on it, I'm not sure.
I passed out an ordinance that's still in the books from 2006 that was signed by the city attorney, city council, and Mayor Arroyo. And what that ordinance says is that city attorney has the right to approve settlements under $25,000. And so what I'm asking for is the ones over $25,000.
Councilman Vieira, you were recognized.
Yeah, just very briefly again, with this, given I don't know how many settlements have been entered into, and I don't want to get into it because I don't want to give people ideas, but this could be a potential can of worms on certain unique type of cases that would undermine, I think, the welfare of the city ultimately. I can privately inquire with the city attorney's office on a number of issues involving this. I'm not prepared to vote on this today. I would vote no on it respectfully. I think that it would open up a can of worms on many issues potentially, and I just say that from my experience. I don't think it's wise. I understand your intent, and I'm glad to support your ordinance. I think that's a wonderful thing that we're doing and whatnot from a policy perspective. But this, I think, would have a lot of unintended consequences that the maker of the motion obviously doesn't intend, but may ultimately go there. So, and again, without getting into things, because I don't want to open up cans of worms. But respectfully, I always like to be collegial and support motions, including when it comes back for further consideration. We're just dating it and not married to it. But on this one, I think there's a lot of can of worms there. Thank you.
Councilman Maniscalco.
So my question is, retroactively approve or not approve a settlement. Let's say it's $1 million settlement that was approved 3 years ago. We've made the payout to a said individual. We now do not approve it retroactively. Do we sue that individual or entity to get that money back? What happens?
As I said, I can talk about this as much as you all want, but the can of worms was opened a few weeks ago when we found out that this rule was changed, I think without council knowledge, by a 2-paragraph memo, while the ordinance from 2006 is still on the books. And so the advice I got was that we need to approve them retroactively. And I'm not talking about looking at them to decide whether we're going to approve them or not, that we need to approve them retroactively. That prevents the bigger can of worms from opening. So if you all vote this down, at least I've done my duty to put this on the table and try to protect the city.
Councilman Goods.
I respect what you're trying to do, Councilman Carlson, and it's the right thing to do. But is it the right time right now? I think everyone's got a situation. I got a situation. I think we've already brought it to light. I've had several of our legal teams looked at the same stuff and said that the past city attorney was in violation of that. We've had about 6 attorneys look at that. As all of them said the same thing, that the charter was specific on that item. But now we're going to make it more clear with a new ordinance now to move forward. We'll deal with my situation wherever that comes out. But right now, I just think probably, those things are to bed now. You might wake up some dead skeletons on some other stuff that, that could be potentially hurtful to the city. So maybe it's been brought to light, you brought it to light, and then we just move on with the new ordinance and just move on. But I appreciate what you're trying to do, though. You did the right thing.
Was there a second on your motion, Councilman Carlson? Is there a second on Councilman Carlson's motion?
I'll second it as collegial. Let's see where it goes.
Motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Goods. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
So can I make it just a modified motion that City Council request that the city attorney review the contracts over $25,000 since 2018 that were not approved by City Council for any city council members who request it. The reason why I make that motion is otherwise I'm gonna get charged public records if I pull it.
I'll second if you want, I don't have an issue with that. You want to see it, it's probably, if you see it. I think the motion was, I recognize, sir.
Councilman
The
Good.
motion was that, you know, you want to be able to see those records. I don't have a problem with that, you know. I'll
And
second
anybody
it.
else who wants to see them.
Right, I don't have a problem with that.
Motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Goods. Any further discussion?
And I'm sorry, if I may.
Councilman Vieira.
Thank you, sir. So you're asking that those records be made available to you?
To any city council member who wants to see them.
Okay. The challenge with that's going to be, I mean, the city, and again, I discussed it with the city attorney, there's, I'm sure, a ton of settlements over $25,000. I'm just not sure of the volume of work, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, if you want to inquire into them in their public records, et cetera, I'm sure that's a reasonable request, but yeah. Just meandering, sorry.
Thank you.
Motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay, I'm not sure what I'm hearing because I just want to clear in my mind, I'm thinking about the what ifs. The what ifs here is not the case that they're making you pay for this. That's what you asked them to do in the United
No, this is a different one. This is different. This is a document that any city council member should be able to look at. I haven't asked for it yet, but
you asked for it, I'm sure you'll get it.
But just it probably will require they will try to do a legal review and then charge me for legal fees. So I'd rather the rest of you may want to look at them too. But you know, we're responsible to the city and taxpayers, and so I'm just curious to see what's in there.
I think we're all responsible. We all have the taxpayers at heart. However, I got to really now take that charter, give it to my attorney to read it, see if all the factual. I'm not doubting your question, your wording, but I got to make sure that that's in the charter by another outside opinion. That's what I'm going to do.
And give them the 2006 ordinance, please.
Pardon me?
Give them the 2006 ordinance, the one that where city council approved by the mayor and the city attorney gave the city attorney the right to
Well,
approve
just
it.
give me a copy of it. You know where it's at.
Yeah.
I don't have to ask for it.
May I ask, if I may? Now, the question is, and again, I don't want to dissect this, which is what are you looking for? When it includes settlement, does that include settlement agreements? Does that include demand letters? Does that include claim files? In other words,
just the settlement agreements.
Just the settlement agreements. Are settlement agreements, and I don't know this, I've never dealt in public sector law like this, are settlement agreements themselves public records?
Some of them aren't.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, maybe I'd want to ask the city attorney on a few issues that I'm thinking of, and if it was like a printout of X versus X, pay out this amount, something like that, I'm sure that's reasonable. I just don't want to open up, I don't want to use the term can of worms again, I just don't want to open up something that could result in a whole bunch of records getting out there. Again, just.
Yeah, I wouldn't take any of them. I would sit in the city attorney's office and review them.
Look at them, it's a big deal.
Did we vote already? We did, right?
Well, I don't know if the vote was clear. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Miranda,
I'm going to say no.
Hurtag, Carlson,
Yes.
Goods,
Yes.
Vieira.
I need, like I said, more specificity. I want to support the request, but I need more specificity.
That's what I need.
So is that a no?
No.
Okay,
Just
thank
want
you.
to explain.
Maniscalco
Yes.
and Citro.
No.
Yeah, motion failed due to.
If I may, maybe bring it back next week, and I'm sure I could vote yes. If it's just.
Okay, I'd like to make another motion, please. I'd like to make a motion to, it's okay, I'd like to make a motion to have the city attorney come back at staff reports next week to review how to deal with the contracts that were not signed since 2018, over 25,000, and to discuss whether city council members, as officers of the city, have the right to review the agreements.
We don't have a meeting next week.
Oh, December 1st, thank you.
How many staff reports do we have December 1st?
I gotta leave, I got a meeting, I gotta attend at 4.
We can do it on
December 15th,
December 15th.
I think it's a regular meeting.
Regular meeting.
That's our last meeting before the end of the year.
That's another one that's pretty full, and we added quite a few.
January 5th, 4th, what's that one?
January 19th.
January.
And I'm fine with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Who seconded that motion?
I'll second.
Motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye. Last thing real fast, just congrats to Yvette Lewis and the new board of the NAACP for their win last night.
Second.
I wasn't paying attention. What was the motion? Yes, sir.
Congratulations.
Wasn't a motion.
Second.
Thank you.
Anything else?
All right. No.
December 4th will be my pastor's, Caleb Barnum of the New Salem Missionary Baptist Church, his 50th birthday, and I wish to present him with accommodation off-site.
Second. Oh, I'm sorry. We have a motion from Chairman Citro. Second from Councilmember Goods. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Anything else?
Move to receive and file.
Move to receive and file.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone.